I need to pass back the hosting, don't I? So
no, you don't need to.
Nevis, again. Yes, Nevis wants to come back in.
Yeah. It's all done.
Okay.
Fabulous. Gosh,
right.
You're very good at this.
Okay. So it gives us great pleasure now to invite Julie to speak. But before we do, she's already introduced her business, so we won't talk about that. But on a personal level, we have known Julie for 2 years. I can't remember now, must be about 2 years. We shared a lovely journey to India, Nepal and Tibet, and we shared that together. And we have great respect for Julie. She's, when they wrote down to earth in the dictionary, they were actually talking about Julie. The most down to earth person on this earth. She is what she is. And what you see is what you get. And we love her to bits. So I'm going to hand over to Julie. We give you a big hug. So we'd like to pass over to Julie, who's going to talk about mental health and help us understand it a lot better, and hopefully give us some, ideas on how to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. Can I share my screen, please?
Yeah, you can. It's yeah, you should be able to do it.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Katerina invited me to talk about mental health. So I think perhaps all bar Wendy saw me talk about stress management and everything, which I did because I'd just written another book, which is Stress to Reality. And when I was speaking to Katerina, I've got a list of the 4 things she wanted me to cover, which was to understand what mental health is, to identify what it looks like, to deal with it, and to come out stronger. And I've got half an hour, and I thought, whoa, that is a list and a half, but I've done my best that I can do within like the limited time. And obviously there'll be Q&A. If you want to ask a question while I'm going through it, please do. And if not, I'll do any questions and answers that you might have at the end. Now, what I will say is that I'm not medically trained. So there are no medical opinions in this. I have done a lot of work with people who have mental health issues over the years when I've been working with the leaders and the managers in business, because they don't seek help and they get to a point where they are going round in circles, basically, has been when I've been called in to deal with them, which is a bit late, to be honest. So I've taken that information, plus I've done a lot of research today about actually what does mental health mean, where does it come from, and lots of other stuff linked into it, which is what's compiled, plus my knowledge of the past. So, oh, hang on, my clicker's not working. Why is my clicker not working? Hang on a minute. Sorry, everybody. Right, I won't be using a clicker. I'll be using that.
It's all right. Don't worry.
Why is my slides not moving on?
Do you need any help? Or
no, I don't know what that was, but hey ho.
You can speak longer than half an hour, by the way. So we've got
plenty
of time.
Well,
so yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see where we get to.
How it goes. Yeah.
So I thought what I'd sort of talk about first is the explanation of it, so that we get an understanding of what mental health actually means. So with mental health, we've all got it. We've all got it all of the time. But it is the fact that in recent years, it's come to the fore, and I'll show you some figures on that as we go through, but it's always associated as a problem. Mental health is sort of always had a problem with it. So we very rarely talk about mental health as in good mental health and those people that are okay with their mental health. But it's generally highlighted when it becomes a problem, and that gives us I believe gives us a problem when things start to go a little bit awry about how we then deal with it. But with mental health, where people are not as healthy as they can be, apparently it's said to affect 1 in 4 people in every given year, which when you think of that as a statistic, that's 25% of the population are going to have a mental health issue, problem, whatever the word you want to attach to it, within a year. So if that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us on this call, that's almost 2 of us are going to have a mental health issue within a year, which is quite extreme when you think about it. So our mental health is ours to maintain in most cases, and there are incidences where there are issues that we don't have a control over it a lot of the time. Bipolar, schizophrenia, those sorts of things are an extreme of a mental health issue that we don't always have control over. And my belief is if we are generally healthy and we catch it early enough, we do have a control over it, and it is ours to maintain. And the sooner we do that, the better off we're going to be, clearly. It's a combination of so many things, it's almost untrue. But for those of you that got the book and have read the book, a lot of what causes our mental health is in this book. So bear that in mind as well. It is complex because it's your mind, but it's not just your mind, it's your emotions. And it's everything that goes to make us who we are. And you can't see it. You cannot see mental health. So when people have a physical disability or are ill with, I don't know, just give an example, chickenpox, you can physically see it. If someone's got eczema, you can physically see it, but you can't see mental health. You know, like you can't see a bad heart or a blocked artery. You can't see mental health either. So people would physically look okay. And the thing is with mental health, if we're not careful, it can trap us, and it can decline on a very slow basis, or it can be very quick. So the definition, and I've done a lot of research in today on this, and that I haven't come up with a one definition, but I looked at a few and they were all very, very similar, is that mental health is a level of psychological well-being or an absence of mental illness. And it is a state of someone who is functioning at a satisfactory level. Is that a question? I can't hear you, Katerina, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just waving to Wound, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh.
Sorry, Julie.
It's absolutely fine. So the definition that most of them sort of come up with was of mental health is when an individual is functioning at a satisfactory level of emotional and behavioural adjustment. Now, when I looked at that, I sort of went, what on earth does satisfactory mean? And what is an adjustment? You know, so for each and every single one of us, we've all got different levels of satisfaction. And it sort of got me thinking, one of my best friends, and she is my best friend, her and I are so different. If you actually saw her operating sometimes, and as you would me, so we're very similar but very different. I look at her sometimes and I think, Sylvia, what are you doing? So the satisfactory level of emotional and behavioural adjustment, and I know she thinks exactly the same of me as I think of her sometimes. We have the conversations around it. It sort of links into that mental health problems are a common human experience. Lots of us have them. And I know I have suffered with my mental health more over the last 2.5 years than I ever have done in my life. So it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what gender you are, what your culture is, we all have it all of the time. And unfortunately, this is my belief, is because it's always classified as a mental health problem, it has a stigma attached to it. And we have to think about what that means for us. Because for somebody to say, I've got something wrong with my mental health, potentially what happens is the first thing that comes to our mind is that it's a negative. Whereas in reality, asking for help for a mental health, for any issue, is a positive. So I looked up the use of words. So I love etymology. I love words. And I get one in front of me and I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? Where does it come from? So what I did with, I looked up mental health. And this really aided my understanding of what mental health is. And it says a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. All right, okay. Same thing as what's said before. But what does that really mean? So I then looked up the use of words over a period of time. So here we go. Every single one of the words that's attached to mental health has gone up in usage, so far peaking in 2019. Now I'm going to be really, because these are the last stats that are given, I'm going to be really interested to see what happens in 2020, because it's almost exploded again, like the use of the phrases and the words. So psychological, what does it mean? It relates to the mental and emotional state of a person. So this is not just what's going on up in here, it's also what's going on in your heart, in your emotional, your feelings. Emotions, meaning is a strong feeling, and the mental comes from the Latin meaning mind. That's the original source of the word. So it's mind and emotion. So it's up here and down into your chest. So what happens? And this links back a lot to what I talked about in the in the previous sessions I did. But just as a sort of an interest and just as a thought, what are you actually seeing at the moment? I think you're going to say a blue square, a blue oblong. Yeah, right. Now, if I was the other side of the thing, what I'd be seeing is a yellow oblong. So when you think about perceptions, we all see things differently because it's all through our filters. We all experience things differently because they all come through our filters. All of our background, our experiences, our life experiences, who we are as an individual, how we were influenced when we were young. We all see things differently, and this is our perception of the world. And of course, that relates directly into our mental health, because what will affect one person will not affect another. So just as an example, and the examples I can give come from my life. My mum was a worrier. I must have somewhere in my upbringing decided I was not going to inherit that gene. If it's a gene, it probably isn't, but I wasn't going to inherit the worry, because worry is a forward focused anxiety. And for me, it was like, well, what are you worrying about? It won't help to worry over something, because worrying doesn't change the result. A plan might, a piece of action might, but we'll come on to that in a bit more in a bit later. So a key point in all of this is that we see and experience things differently. Every single one of us sees and experiences things differently. So we are not the same. So we have different responses. We have different reactions to anything and everything. So what affects one will not affect another necessarily. And good mental health generally means that we're able to think, we're able to feel, we're able to react in the ways that we need to and want to live our life. So if anything stops us doing that, it can affect our mental health. And this is all relating into, Katerina asked me to talk about COVID. So thinking about what we're going through with COVID, we are not being able to live our life the way we want to, for various reasons we'll come on to. So when you think about COVID-19 and what's happened in 2020, all of those things, isolation. Some of us live on our own, some of us don't, some of us got partners, some of us haven't, some of us got children around the world that they can't get to. They've, all the holidays have been booked, cancelled, all sorts of things. So isolation. People are self-isolating. All of the restrictions that are in place about where we can go, where we can't go, what we can do, what we can't do. If we've got to stand 2 meters apart, 1 meter apart, wear a mask, not wear a mask. So all those restrictions have been imposed on us. it's affected, I mean, I don't know whether it's affected everyone, but it has affected a lot of people financially, whether they're working, whether they're on furlough, whether their businesses have been affected, whether they've lost their job because the redundancies are already kicking in. It has affected people financially. And that could just be because they work rather than they have their own business. COVID-19 has put us into a world of an unknown and an uncertainty. And for humans, we operate better when things are known and things are certain and we can predict, which I know is a sort of a bit of an oxymoron, but we can predict what's going to happen. If you think about COVID-19 and thinking about mental health being an emotional thing as well as a mind thing, people have lost families, family members, and they've not been able to go in and see them. They've not been able to grieve. There was at one point funerals, there was only 5 people allowed, if you were allowed to have a funeral. I know that's been lifted, but people are still going through that grief cycle. And illnesses, if people have experienced COVID-19, and I know a few that have, some of them are still ill months and months and months and months after it. So regardless of what we think of COVID-19 and how it's happening and how it happened, it is an illness that people have caught and have become unwell over. We get mixed messages all of the time on practically everything you look at. There's a lot of fear being generated, trust has broken down, free speech is being restricted a lot. There are a lot of rumours rumbling around. And of course, the media, if you turn on the news, look at the papers, the majority of it's pretty negative. There's not a lot of good stuff being promoted to us as the human beings that are out there experiencing and living in this world. So COVID-19, when you think about what's happened, and 2020, it's been pretty damn negative, which of course affects your mental health, depending on who you are as the individual you are. Which led me to thinking about, and I doubt you'll ever see anybody ever link mental health into Maslow, to be honest, and I'm going to do it. Now, Maslow hierarchy of needs is what we need as human beings. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Does everybody know Maslow? Or does anybody not know Maslow, perhaps? Is that a no, Maria? Yeah, okay. So let me just take you sort of briefly through Maslow. So Maslow created this, it's a model of motivation, basically, is where it comes from. And he created this in the 50s, and it's one of the original models of motivation that has really stood the time, and people refer to it a lot still today. I can sort of knock it out of a cocked hat, but when there is change happening, whether it's imposed or chosen, Maslow absolutely comes into play with the concept of the theory. And basically what Maslow says is that we have a hierarchy of needs, and we start at the bottom and we work our way up. And if one of the lower levels gets shaken, we go back down the hierarchy to resolve that issue before we can go back up the hierarchy. So he says that until you've got the lower levels met, you will never go up the hierarchy. You stay at the level where you need for the thing to be resolved. So the bottom level, so the physiological level, is around our basic needs as humans to survive. So it's fluid, food, warmth, roof over your head. Sex comes into this, clothing, those sorts of things. It does. We need it to survive, apparently. So the physiological level is our very lowest level of survival as a human we are. Come up to safety, and safety is all about the rules and it's about the rules that we operate in. So it's our known, I'm going to say, processes, procedures. Like the law of the land is a rule that we abide to. any policy or process within our business or our organisation that we work for, whether employed or self-employed, is our safety level. It's what we can do and when we can do it and how we can do it. The love and belonging is around us belonging to groups, affiliating to groups, associating to groups. So we would work for an organisation because we affiliate to that organisation, whether that be what they do or our role within that or the team we belong to. Esteem comes from us valuing ourselves and being valued by others. So it's self-worth and self-esteem. Self-actualization is where we bring the most of us that we can possibly bring out into the world. So this is us being the best version of us we can be. And then transcendence is when we just go up to a higher level and we transcend and do things. It's so easy when you're in that state. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is based on us being able to ask questions to understand what is going on. So he says that if we can't ask questions to understand what's going on, we would even struggle to manifest the first level. I say manifest as in make the first level happen. Now, if you come back to COVID, and I'll flip backwards and forwards if I need to, if you look at what has happened through COVID, so isolation, restrictions, financial changes, uncertainty, deaths, illnesses, mixed messages. If I come back to Maslow, COVID has affected every single level of Maslow, without a doubt. So what happens with individuals, they will come down to the lowest level that's been affected to try and resolve it. So if you come back down to the bottom level, the physiological level, which is around food on the table, warmth, sustenance, living, roof over your head, and you think about the financial implications of what's going on for people, they could be very concerned about their core level of survival. And that's what that lowest level is. Now, if you think about the core level of survival, that takes us straight into the fight and flight response, which affects everything. So again, going back to the book, Stress to Reality, I spoke about the fight and flight response before. That changes everything within your body, how it operates, how it works. Now, coming back to, where am I going? Am I going forward or backwards? So coming forward into COVID-19, once again, this has been going on since March. So depending on who we are as individuals, we have had already, where are we now? What are we in? November, March, 3 to 11. What's that, 7 months? Is that 7 months? We've had 7 months of being concerned about, various levels of Maslow. And some of us will be far more affected than others. So just thinking about service to people that provided service accommodation. And I know a woman overnight who lost her complete business, her complete income. She had no idea what she was going to do, and that was overnight. And that was when we first went into lockdown. Now, I haven't seen her online since. I haven't spoken to her since. I've spoken to another woman whose complete business was serviced accommodation, but she had a partner. So this is where things start to change and alter. She had a partner who had a different business. So as much as her financial business crashed, there was still income coming in. The first woman that I spoke to, she didn't have a partner. It was her on her own. So each and every one of us are affected differently by the consequences of what happened with that first lockdown. So coming forward, what happens is that what has a tendency to happen, and this is where it can cause mental health concerns, illness, problems, whatever the word is that people start to worry. Worry is the forward focused anxiety. It creates anxiety. So with how we operate up here, if people start to worry about something and there is no end, they can't get out to see the end of it, it creates anxiety. Ongoing from anxiety is that people get into a depression. I'm going to talk about some of these things in a bit. People get into depression, people have panic attacks, and this has already started to happen, people commit suicide because they see no way forward. And this is all to do with mental health issues, concerns. And what happens is, because of the way our society is formed, we look to others, as in government, to resolve some of the issues that we've got as a society. So I was talking to a friend the other day who said, well, all I hope is that the government can continue to pay my pension. So even her, who is retired with an income, a private pension, is concerned that if the government stops paying her pension, she's not going to survive as well. So there's lots of consequences happening from what's happening. Like broader things are happening. And of course, you know, with what's going on, so we came out of lockdown, we've gone back into lockdown as of tomorrow. We look up to those authority figures to resolve these types of issues for us. And unfortunately, at the moment, the people that we turn to trust or not trust, you know, depending on how we think and perceive the government, they're not protecting us either. And this is the world over. It's not just in the UK. So you can sort of see how this is causing mental health concerns in a broader picture. So recognising the symptoms, again, a lot of these things would be exactly the same as the stress reaction. So from the previous presentations I've done, so the fight-flight response kicks things off. Remember that when we're in fight or flight, as much as we get aroused, we have to relax. It's exactly the same. But with this COVID, some people are being kept in that aroused position rather than being allowed to relax, because things are constantly changing. So recognizing the symptoms. Good mental health means that we're generally able to think and to feel and to behave in the ways that we need to and want to. So remember, there's a need to do things, and then there's our want to do things. And remembering we are in an environment of free speech, free action, free everything we perceive it to be. So good mental health is in the ways you need and want to live your life. So if you think about impaired mental health, it means that we're unable to think, we're unable to feel and behave in the ways that we want to live our life. And this is exactly where we have been since March with COVID, for the majority of us, in one way or another. And of course, some of us have far greater choice than others. Whew. So these are some of the signs. And again, some of them are very similar to the stress response, but there are also some different ones in here that I didn't speak about before. So when people worry, they have a tendency to spin in their head. They constantly think the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So we overthink the same thing. So we have uncontrollable overthinking. We go round and round in circles. We have problems with memory or concentration. Now, I was doing this today and I'm thinking, well, I've been like that. I've had some of them. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. No, I'm not having any more of this. Nope, not happening. But you have problems with memory and concentration. You get feelings of dread, panic, or impending doom. Haven't had any of them, by the way. You get irritable. I've definitely had that. You have heightened alertness. So you're sensitive to things, whatever that might be. You have trouble sleeping, I've had some of this, or you sleep too much. So remember, we're different. We are going to respond differently. Now, I was speaking to somebody the other day. I've been doing a lot of talking to a lot of people, trying to support them through a lot of this. I spoke to a woman the other day. She had been up all night because she couldn't sleep. And then she had slept the entire day. Now, I know from the way she's talking, she's not in a good place. I can tell it, because she's doing the uncontrollable overthinking. She's not remembering things. She's put on a hell of a lot of weight, she told me, and her hair is thinning. Now, that's not just COVID, but her father died a year ago. So she's got all of that going on as well. And then COVID, so no income. A loss of or increase. So remember, two different things. A loss of or an increase in appetite for food, for alcohol, for nicotine, for drugs, and for sex. You feel depressed, anxious, or panicky. You've got anger, so irritability moves into anger, or restlessness, so you can't sit still. So Maria, you said about your bottom sticks to the chair. Yeah, mine's been doing that as well. But you sort of restlessness, you can't sit down, you're not focusing on things. You've got racing thoughts. Again, comes back to the uncontrollable overthinking, but with racing thoughts, you're probably going to flip from one subject to another subject to another subject to another subject. It's like your head is all over the place. Make bad decisions. And this was one I thought about, and I didn't see this written down anywhere. But if you're feeling low, you will have a lack of smiles, you'll have a lack of laughter, you'll have not a lot of joy going on, and you have a lack of interest in things because you're feeling low. You could want to escape from whatever it is. And the signs are you'll have no or less contact with people. I've highlighted that one because that's one of the signs that we can really pick up with people. So no or less contact. People don't want to talk. People don't want to answer the phone. You'll phone someone a number of times and they won't answer, they won't pick up because they're isolating themselves even further. And one of the other signs is that you become exhausted. Everything becomes hard. Everything is too hard to do, too hard to think about, too hard to do. You haven't got the energy. And this is one, and I hadn't registered this one, but apparently it's one of the signs of having a mental health issue is that you disassociate from yourself. You might feel that you're not connected to your body, or it's like you're watching things happen around you. So you're disassociated. Now that's a tool and a technique that you can use with NLP to repair emotional trauma or things in the past. But of course, if you're disassociating from yourself within the world when you're not using it as a therapeutic technique, then there might be something slightly wrong. So again, I hadn't even associated that one in with mental health, but it came up on quite a few sites I was looking at today. Now, I disassociated from myself when I was about 16 or 17, and it taught me a really good lesson. Stop swearing and stop smoking. But I was sort of up in the corner of a room. So it's something that does happen. I mean, I think it was through alcohol that I disassociated, but something happened. Katerina, you always also asked me to talk about coming out stronger. And I thought, well, I was doing all this research thinking, how do we come out of this stronger? So I thought to myself, okay, so what do we need to do, truly need to do, is we need to talk. We need to get it out. We need to not be stigmatized by the concept that mental health is a problem and an issue. So we need to ask for help if we think we're you know, not in the best place we could be. And when we ask for help, we need to take notice of the trusted person that we've gone to help us. Because what happens if we ask for help and people give us the help and they give us their best advice and we don't do anything about it, and then you ask for advice and help again and you don't do anything about it, because we are, a lot of us are in conflict. When we're in conflict, I think I've spoken about this before, but I'm not sure. There's three stages we go through. At the top level of conflict, we will look to ourselves, to the other person, and to the problem. Second stage of conflict, we will look to self and the problem. Third stage of conflict, we'll only look to self. Now, I can give you a classic example of this. So people's businesses are affected. I'm in a couple of WhatsApp groups where you post on social media and we like and comment on each other's posts because it spreads the reach. So for all of you that are in business, you probably know about this, but it spreads the reach of the posts. Now, right throughout COVID, we have been posting, liking, commenting, and I'm in a couple of groups. And what's happened as we've gone through COVID is that people are disappearing out of the groups. What's also happening as we're going through COVID is that people are just dropping a post and not commenting on anybody else's. And on certain platforms, you need to use a certain amount of words. And what is also happening is that people are going in, they might like, or they might use one-word answers. So people are getting deeper into the conflict to only look after self. Now, it's perfectly natural that this happens, but they're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into wherever it is they're going to end up and wherever they're going. And, you know, I can't tell you why that's happening for them individually because they're all individuals. But I would imagine for a lot of them, their businesses are struggling and they're in financial, I don't know, their finances have changed. So ask for help and take notice of the advice, because people will naturally not give the same amount of advice over and over and over and over again if people are not going to take notice. They'll give the advice to someone else that's going to do something with it. Ask questions, listen to the answers. I see so many people currently are leaping to assumptions. They're not listening, they're not asking the questions, they're leaping to an assumption which isn't serving because it could be based on rumour rather than fact. Help others. You know, there is a whole thing in here. If we help others, it allows us to feel better about ourselves, which then lightens the load. You know, it's give and take and give. It works both ways. Don't rest on your laurels. I'm deadly serious about this one. The word, and I think Peter, you used it earlier, was pivot. Do not rest on your laurels. We are not in the same world now that we were in March, and when we come out of this next lockdown, which may be before Christmas, who knows, we're not going to be in the same world. This is affecting the economy of the world, not just the UK. This is huge. I was talking to somebody the other day who's got a child who's just coming up to their second birthday, and she said to me that they've spent nearly half their life, they're only two, but they've spent nearly half their life in lockdown. And it really spoke to me because I'm thinking, I'm an adult, I'm all right. You know, my business is sort of okay. I've got tenants not paying, but I'm sort of okay. And I just thought that child at 2, when we are formed with all our belief systems and everything, has spent half its life in lockdown. I mean, that's decades of stuff that will possibly come back at us linked into our mental health and emotional health. So do not rest on your laurels, pivot, because this is how we're going to come out of this stronger. Eat well. This comes back to what we talked about on Fight and Flight. Eat well, exercise, meditate, write a journal, get it out, whatever it is, get it out, whether you're talking to somebody or you're going to write it. Writing a journal really does help get what's going on out here out. Minimize outgoings because, you know, financially, I don't know what the percentage is of the population that's been affected, but I reckon it's pretty high. Minimize the outgoings. You know, a lot of us live a life of, I've been doing this for the last few years, but before this, I lived a life that I thought I wanted to have, needed, and with reality, I didn't really. So minimize your outgoings and maximize your incomings. And, you know, just thinking about what Katerina was saying earlier, we've probably all got houses full of stuff that we don't actually need. Sell it. You know, if you need the money. I did. Part of my first lockdown was I sold a load of stuff on eBay, loads of it. So what we think is our rubbish is someone else's gold, and it is. I buy off eBay all the time because you get some real bargains. And learn. So, you know, coming out stronger, learn for an adjusted world, learn what the world is moving to, and learn for that. You know, applaud Katerina and Luca for doing these online, you know, monthly meets. A load of stuff is online now, online courses, online learning, online all sorts of everything. So learn for that adjusted world while we've got the opportunity as part of lockdown. I mean, I know a lot of this stuff, but I don't do a lot of this stuff, as in online things. And then coming out stronger, remain optimistic. Now, again, I put a post out on LinkedIn the other day, and I'm in these groups. So in both groups, if I post something normally, it gets anywhere between about 1,000 and 1,500 views. Depending on what groups I post in, sometimes it's as low as 300 views on the post. I put a post out the other day about remaining optimistic, and it's had nearly 3,000 views. So people are crying out for the positivity within the world, on social media, online, whatever. They're crying out for it because it's had huge amounts of views. I did a post the other day, and I'll find the title of it. I can't quite remember it at the minute. It's had over 16,000 views. I know, I'm like, what? It took on a life of its own because of the subject matter, and it was around positivity. It was around living your life and positive and whatever that was. And I didn't actually write it as a motivational post. It was a thought I had when I woke up in the morning. I just wrote what my head said, and I mean, it's unbelievable. So remain optimistic, create a plan, listen for the negative self-talk and stop it, because this is where this starts spinning, where we can't control what's going on. So this morning, again, being really honest with you, I woke up at 7. Well, I didn't sleep, but I ended up waking up at 7 because of a bizarre sleep pattern last night. I didn't get out of bed till 10:30 this morning. And I was laying there thinking to myself, it's warm, it's nice, it's comfortable. And when I looked at the time, I have no idea where 3.5 hours went. But what I did realise was that my brain was not in a positive frame of mind this morning. So catch that self-talk and stop it. And keep away from the media as much as you can, because that is unbelievably negative. So I watch different news channels to what's like BBC One, ITV, and all the rest of it. And if you saw what was going on around the world, it's pretty depressing, to be honest. I try very hard. I want to keep up to date with what's going on, but I don't want that in my face the whole time and in my head and in my ears. I just don't. So I have to back that off. Now, linked into this, and again, I was talking to somebody the other day, and she said to me, I realised that people's negativity affects me. And I said, yeah, it does. It's because you're a receiver rather than a sender. So depending on who we are as individuals, we send very strong emotions. We all do it. We send very strong emotions, and some of us take them on board. So some of us are higher receivers than senders. Yeah, that's right. Some of us are higher receivers than senders. So if you are a high a high receiver, get yourself around positive people, because you will capture the positivity and the optimism rather than the negativity. So think about really, truly, I mean, what's the saying, that you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with? Think about who you're surrounding yourself with, because if they're negative, it's going to affect you. If they're positive, it's going to affect you. So get yourself around positive people as much as you can. And I don't say positive as in being naive and, you know, I'm going to say away with the fairies, although that's sometimes fun, but positive people who are thinking about how do we do this? How do we make this world a better place? How do we get out of this? How do we come out of this stronger? And remember that we're all in this. It's not us in isolation. We're all in this together. And of course, sometimes it feels like it's just us because we're isolated. But remember that we're all in this together, and we are. You know, I haven't met one person yet who's not been affected. You know, from multimillionaires to people that work part-time in ASDAs, everybody's been affected in one way or another. And of course, the more money you've got, the less in some respects it's going to affect you, but you're still isolated away from your family. And if your family's ill or someone in your family's, you know, ill or not with you any longer, emotionally you're going to be affected by it, which then affects what goes up on in the mind. So I haven't met one person yet who hasn't been affected at all. So that's my presentation. If anybody wants to ask me any questions or wants to go back or wants me to talk more about whatever it is I've just spoken about, or wants to connect with me at you know, via email or whatever, connect@clavin.global. I'm on all the social media platforms. Please do. I think we're probably all already connected anyway. But has anybody got any questions?
Can we get the big, can we unshare the screen so we can just see each other, and then is that okay?
What do I do? Oh yeah, stop share. Hang on.
Stop share, that's it,
That's
yeah.
it.
And welcome to whoever's joined us, Lisa and Woon as well, welcome. And sorry, Lisa, I know you've missed it, but we're going to be putting the tape on Facebook so that then you can all watch it. It's amazing what Julie shared with us. It really, really is very amazing. Any questions? Anybody's or want to share anything about any experience or gone very quiet?
I'll start actually,
Yeah.
because you're right. I think I realized that this past few months have probably been the most challenging, time that they have experienced probably in my life, and the way I've dealt with it is going back to looking at the Maslow's pyramid, going back to the physiology basically. So I've looked after myself, like both in in the way I eat and exercising, and that's the first has been the base that then has allowed me to deal with with other issues as well. But that was the main thing, because I've noticed you are making a list of the issues, and I think yes. I was thinking them all.
Yeah.
Practically,
So
and I thought that's the first way I got myself out. Just the food and exercising have been actually a really great help for me.
Yeah.
And he
I've
helps
already
as well.
made a note. I've already made a note to start your Nutella diet, Luca, because I think that would help me as well.
Just beware the sugar, everybody. It's addictive.
No, Nutella's fine. There's no sugar in it at all.
But I think Luca, I think you're right. I think every single one of us, whether we think we have or whether we think we haven't, when we look down the list, as I did today when I was putting this together, we have all been affected. I don't think we can help but be affected by what's gone on, because it's not natural, and it is not how we all believe that we can live our life. The choices have been taken away, the certainty's been taken away, the positivity's been taken away. So we're in I mean, what's the phrase that's been used? We're in unprecedented times. Nobody has lived through this before. Nobody. So nobody in reality knows how to manage it and what to do. And that's the truth. So we look for answers from other people, and they don't have them because we've not been here before. So, when I say make a plan, part of me really is about, make a plan, take control of everything you can possibly take control of. Learn for the future, because the future is not what the past was. it's just not going to be. It can't be.
Mm.
Anybody
think-
that thinks it's going to go back to the way, I mean, and I'm not a doom and gloom person, you know I'm not, but anybody that thinks it's going to go back to what it was, I think is deluded.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind sharing, my story as well. Maria and I are having to support a family member. So not only are we having to sort of like pick ourselves up, but we've got that to deal with as well. So I've got around that by getting up early, 6:15 in the morning, and I go power walking, I meditate, I'm learning French, and I've got something else I do until I start work. And then in the evenings, I go to sleep on a positive note as well. I started writing 100 gratitudes every night. I've got a book and I write all my gratitudes. I go to sleep in a positive frame of mind, and it helps me deal with the bits in between, because I wake up positively, I go to bed in a positive mind, and it gives me that strength. And yeah, sometimes I've got the challenges because we're supporting this family member, but I've got that to look forward to in the evening. There's some positivity there. And I think we do need to create some positivity in our day, so that, because, when I'm doing these gratitudes, I think, oh my goodness, this happened and that happened. And sometimes when there's negativity, you don't see the positive sides of things. But by writing them down, I think, oh goodness, I didn't realise there's 7 or 8 positive things that happened today. They were clouded by maybe some negativity, but by doing that, it actually brings it out. So I just wanted to share that with everybody anyway, because sort of it's helping me.
We have to recognise the positives, because if we don't, they are going to get drowned in the negatives that are coming at us at the moment. Optimism is I believe it's a generic trait, actually. I think because I don't think I ever switched it on. I think I've always had it. And one of the posts I put out is that I've been described as a bouncing ball, but both of my it's quite weird, really. One of my friends said to me once that you're like a bouncing ball. She said, you're bouncing up the road towards the sunshine and I'm following along behind you. And I'm like, really? What? But she suffered from depression, and she was attracted to me because of that positive. The people that I speak to on the phone ring me up or ask to talk to me to get a dose of positivity. And I'm thinking, if I could bottle this, it would make me a lot of money.
Particularly in this climate, you do very well.
Oh, exactly. But you know what? It is that thing, and you can't. It is that whole thing of the optimism, not naive optimism. As I said before, it's got to be, well, as you've said, I'm the most practical person you've probably ever met and grounded. Optimism is around living in the reality of the situation, but not letting the negativity of the reality of the situation get you down. It's knowing that there is an end result somewhere, somehow, whether it's over the wall, through the wall, round the wall, or under the wall, or smash the wall out of the way, but you're going to get to a solution that serves. And you might have to, for want of using a better word, pivot along the way to change things, to tweak things. So that flexibility of change, and the flexibility to come out of again, for want of a better word, our comfort zone, which somebody actually said to me today. She said, I don't like calling it a comfort zone, I call it the familiar zone. And I thought, that is really good, just the change of a word, the familiar zone. So coming out of that zone and trying and doing something different. I mean, it's key for all of this. Key.
It's a
I
difficult.
like your. Sorry, go ahead, Katerina.
No, Peter, carry on.
Yeah, I liked your points about the media, Julie, and the kind of what sells newspapers and what directs people to the adverts and the advertising revenue is tons of bad news or things that frighten us or make us anxious. So I found a very good antidote to that and you may know this guy already, but a guy called Peter Diamandis, and he has a blog, and he has a kind of a virtual Peter that is just a kind of news scooper.
Okay.
But the news that he's scooping is all these technological innovations
Yeah.
that are going to change the world in a very, very positive way, kind of medical breakthroughs, stuff about longevity and health and the benefits of AI and all sorts of stuff like that. So with your permission, Katerina and Luca, I'll put in the chat the address for his blog. And I get an email every day with all these wonderful stories about what's happening and all this inventiveness that's going to solve, lots and lots of problems around the world. So is that okay if I put that in?
Yeah, great.
Positive, yeah.
Great, there we are. So
Shall I tell you one thing I've found myself doing, and it's I find it a bit daft, but it really lightens my mood. I watch, I go onto YouTube and I look for clips of Graham Norton
yeah,
when
Good
he's interviewing his guests. Because some of those interviews, I mean, they're hilarious and they're just short. They're like 2-3 minutes, but they make me smile. And you can't be happy and sad at the same time. We can only hold one emotion.
We got a similar thing, Julie. We look at your picture on Halloween of last year.
I saw that the other day and I thought, what did Kathleen do to me? Yeah, I saw that the other day and I went, oh.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Julie, because about Graham Norton, because I really like Radio 4, which is very newsy. But in this particular period, where the whole conversation is COVID, and then for a bit of a change, they talk about COVID. And I found myself just switching. I've got BBC Sounds app on my iPhone. And if I just scoot across the dial on that, just one station to Radio 4 Extra, they've got Sherlock Holmes, Poirot, comedy classics, and there's some from my childhood, which are nice to kind of revisit. I remember kind of round the dinner table on a Sunday, my dad used to like to have the radio on. And some of it's bloody awful, like the Navy Lark. It's just not funny. But other stuff like All Gas and Gators with Derek Nimmo, it's really, really funny. And I think, gosh, I wonder whether I got the jokes when I was a kid, but I certainly get them now. So that's a really nice antidote, because unlike you, Julie, my default position is being depressed and being really down. So I need people. That's why I'm such a big fan of this group. Yeah. Before I got on the group earlier this evening, I was feeling very, very pissed off about something. Well, the ice rink closing again. Oh God, the ice rink's gone. And my rollerblading lessons all finished. Like, to use my eldest daughter's phrase, she's very funny. Her younger sister came home late without her keys and was knocking on the door. My eldest daughter's a teacher, so she needs a sleep. And so younger daughter texts, can you open the door? And elder daughter texts back, FSS, for fuck's sake. So anyway, I've lost the thread of what I was saying completely, other than that other people kind of, I kind of need their shirt tails to hang on to, really, whether it's Radio 4 Extra and the comedy programs, or Peter Diamandis and his Good News blog, and this group with all the wonderful people who are very cheerful compared to me, which is very nice.
Oh,
I think it is interesting if we can work out what our natural default setting is, and we would be able to work it out really easily. I think that is all. A lot of that is to do with what goes on up here with our self-talk. So if we catch ourselves, like I did this morning, if we catch ourselves a bit late, but I caught myself eventually. If we catch ourselves with those self-talk negative thoughts, and you've got to listen to them, that's the thing, because I didn't hear them for a couple of hours, we can then flip them, because we just turn them off. We just say, I'm not listening to you anymore. It's like the two things on your shoulder, which one do you listen to, positive or negative, the evil or the good? We can do it as long as we catch ourselves doing it. And it is a habit you can get into. And I do know we have our natural tendencies. It's really interesting how we're made up, but we do have a choice. That's the thing.
It's also interesting that we need to listen to our feelings and think, because sometimes we get stressed and we don't listen to why we're stressed. But we need to sort of tap into those emotions and think, well, why am I feeling like this? And question why we're doing that. And then obviously we're able to digest that mentally and understand the reason why we're feeling that. But a lot of the times I think we feel things and then just block it all out and don't question it. And I think the answer is to sit there and, do question it. And it takes it a step further, doesn't it, in helping you to find out why you're feeling like you are.
Yeah.
One of the
biggest things all of us can do is to increase our self-awareness.
Yeah.
If we all increase our self-awareness, it changes things magnificently. And sometimes when we raise our own self-awareness, you don't like what you find, but actually you raise it, you can do something about it.
Yeah. And maybe that's why some people are having problems as well, because by being isolated, you're having to get into that zone, aren't you? And we're not used to doing it because we're being distracted by the outside world when we're in it. But now we're in our own world, and we are having to analyse things that perhaps we're not used to doing. And some people are struggling with that, because you're having to face up to things, aren't you? Maybe more than you realise you have.
Well, there's all sorts of things going on. I mean, I know people are, a lot of people are still working, so their financial situations haven't changed, but they're working from home. So where they work from, the environment has changed, and some people go to work to be part of a team, and now they're not because they're at home. And some people are working at home. I mean, this is huge. I mean, whichever way round we look at this, everybody's affected somehow. So you're working from home, where you want to be in the office because you want to be part of the team, or whatever it is that you do, but you can't go. And then if you do go, you've got to get on the trains with the masks and the buses that are only taking 30 people on. And everything we're doing at the moment is not what we were used to. It's everything is changed. Everything. I was talking to somebody. I've been talking to a lot of people. I was talking to somebody the other day who works for one of the local authorities, and this was probably a month ago. So not the other day, probably a month ago. They have already been told that they're not going back into their office until next April, if they go back. And they have also, within that particular local authority, they've let a floor of their main office to another company. They've already done it.
Oh, God. My God.
And that's why all my companies for my local authority clients are online.
Yeah.
They're not expected to go back into offices or training rooms for months.
Yeah. But she's been told next April. They won't be back before next April. And that was a month ago. So there's a lot of changes happening that aren't going to suit everybody. And she's at home. So if you think about how this is affecting people or has affected people, all of those working parents all then had to home educate their children, as well as try and work. You know, I mean, I can't imagine what must be going on for people emotionally and mentally.
Lots of patience. We had
something sorry, Katerina. Go on.
No, carry on.
You sure?
Yeah, positive.
Yeah, something I took from your talk, Julie, when we were all together in a real room, in a real bar with real drinks, was what you were saying about self-talk. And I think, I mean, what I do that really helps me, but I resist it like mad, you know, I have to really, really push myself to do it, but when I do it, it's great, is to write down my self-talk in a journal. And at one of my worst moments during the last lockdown, where I really started to kind of think, you know, the next person I pass who's got COVID and I catch it, I'm going to die kind of thing. I you know, I was getting that anxious. I kind of wrote down, I looked at the government websites and I went through all the indicators for highly vulnerable and vulnerable. I listed them all, and then I wrote down whether I was in that category or not. And I discovered that even though I'm kind of over 60, so by one measure, I'm in a vulnerable group, all the other measures, I wasn't vulnerable at all. So it's really great that I listened to my self-talk.
Yes.
You know, I'm really, really at risk, you know, oh God, you know, this is awful. And paid attention to that, you know, allowed myself to capture that self-talk and then used it as a way of working out, well, is that true? Because I think if I hadn't have done that, if I'd have just said, oh, you know, just think positive, as Katerina was saying, it doesn't work. No. It becomes positive stinking. You have to allow that self-talk to come out. And when I write it down, then I've externalized it, and it also allows me to kind of question it and say, well, is that really true? What's the evidence for that? Is there another way of looking at that? Is there a way that I can kind of pivot? You know, that.
Yeah, well, you see, what you've done, Peter, is that you've cut through the assumptions that we make without the fact.
Yeah.
So you've got yourself to a position of educated knowledge and a result. And it when you do that, it stops your head, because you've got the fact rather than the assumption, it stops your head doing other stuff.
Yeah.
It's well, do you know what? I'm glad you listened to that talk.
Yeah, me too. Very handy.
You know, it's I mean, one thing that one person says that helps you. I mean, this is why I do what I do a lot of the time. If one person gets something from a day's training or, you know, a week's program, that's me made. I'm really happy with that, because I've positively affected somebody in the right way. And positive thinking on its own doesn't work. You've got to have the rest of what goes with it to make it real, to make it work within life. Positive thinking on its own, it doesn't change the habit that creates the first thing.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, good.
We just want to apologise for disappearing. We're just going to lighten the conversation. We had two rabbits running around.
Rabbits?
Yes. When you were talking, they were going in different directions trying to eat our plants. So we're trying to get rid of them with a treat. So sorry that we disappeared. So just thought we'd share that with you.
So anybody wants to have like a fenugreek treat?
What sort of rabbits are they?
Pardon?
What sort of rabbits are
Oh,
they?
they're locked-eared. They're quite big, but they normally go to bed at this time. So just,
Yeah.
I don't want you to think we were rude when we both disappeared in different directions.
I've
They're
seen them. They're
enormous. They're like
massive.
large cats.
They're not going to end up in your Saturday cooking class, are they?
No.
No, it's vegan. It's vegan, Peter.
Vegan. Thank goodness for that. Yeah.
Pets is another thing, isn't it? I mean, they sort of lift you up. We know somebody who's got a couple of guinea pigs and he's working from home. And he said the guinea pigs now know him, his voice, and he sees them several times a day. It just lifts his mood up because he's not used to working from home. So there are different ways, aren't there, of making you feel happier and that.
Oh, there are. You've got to work out what it is for yourself as well.
Yeah, what suits you.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Anybody else?
I can see one is getting ready.
Yeah.
I can see the signs.
I'm just curious, what do people think of, what's actually replacing the whole commute thing? Because like now that we don't commute at all, like what are things that are helping us?
So what's the question, Wu?
So you mentioned like, people go to work and because of all sorts of reasons, and like so one of the things that I've noticed is obviously with no one commuting, all the podcasters are not, podcasting is not listened to during the normal sort of commute time or in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the podcast platforms are reporting that people are listening to podcasts in the afternoon, like sort of between 3 and 6 o'clock. So I'm just curious, like if no one's commuting, like what's is there a replacement that you've seen, or if anyone's like experienced something from a mental health point of view?
Well, I don't commute because I work from home. But what I've been doing since the schools went back, my eldest daughter's a teacher, and she started work at a new school. So just to begin with, I kind of walked down with her from where we are down into Brixton, which takes about 15, 20 minutes. And then I kind of walk back again. So I find that's very good for my mental health because we can walk through the park, a bit of the park on the way and on the way back again. But there's an awful lot of people, there were this morning and have been for some time, an awful lot of people commuting. And hellishly long queues of traffic because all the side streets are now fantastic for rollerblading because they've blocked them all off. but that's interesting that people are kind of, maybe the people working from home aren't getting up until after lunch and then treating themselves to their morning podcast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Do people listen to podcasts when they're out running or not?
Yeah.
They do. So perhaps now that people
I know
are
I
home,
do.
You do, yeah. I was just wondering if people are at home now, they want to get out, they might be exercising more, and you might find an increase, I don't know, in people listening to podcasts in the mornings, or I don't know. Would they?
I don't know, Room, but I know. I mean, because I don't have to go out early, but when I do go out, which I mean I did yesterday, the traffic. I think people have gone to the cars. I mean, I live not far from the A2, sort of M25 A2 junction. The A2 going down towards the coast from. Oh, maybe this is your answer. From about 2:30 onwards, 2:30, 3 o'clock, when I'm like, because I'll go out in the afternoon when supposedly there isn't any traffic. The A2 is absolutely chock-a-block with cars going down towards the coast. And I started to think about, have people's working hours changed that much that they now leave at sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon? And I don't know the answer, but the A2 is packed at that time. So maybe people are listening in the cars on the way home. Because I do think everybody's got into their cars. I'm not seeing anybody on buses. I haven't been on a train, so I don't know. But, you know, as buses go past, there's nobody on buses. But there's a lot of cars about.
This week has been particularly bad. I think it's because of tomorrow. You know, and the lockdown tomorrow. Like today the traffic was unbelievable coming back. You know, absolutely coming back because everybody, I think, were just rushing around getting the last bits that they wanted before the shops closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm using lots of buses, and I noticed that it's different now, because before people were listening to music and stuff. Now, not maybe one or two people on the bus, because you have masks, you have this, you are constantly worried not to touch things, and you just can't wait to get off. And I noticed this, hardly anyone is with headphones, hardly anyone is doing any of those things. They're literally just getting in and getting out. And for me, because when I'm working from home, I do my work during the day, and then podcasts is what I listen to in the afternoon. It's my treat. It's like when I finish with stuff, and now I can like listen to podcasts, or I'm listening while I'm doing some boring numbers work. Then I listen to podcasts, and it's mainly now in the afternoons, because this is when I kind of relax and I go into that mode. And I think people's routines have changed. So now it's just trying to figure out what is the new routine, because everybody is doing things differently, for sure.
And it keeps changing as well, doesn't it? Because we've got lockdown, then we haven't, and we've got lockdown, then we haven't. So there's no set routine at the moment. It's constantly changing.
Even that, I've just written down, Nevis, when you were speaking about relaxation and enjoyment. So if people used to commute and listen to music, and now they're not even relaxing on their journeys anymore. If you think about the consequences of that, because they're probably a bit tense because they've got to get on and get off, and the masks and everything else that goes with it, and can't touch anything and all of that. So the relaxation and the enjoyment, if you can call commuting relaxing and enjoyable, but if you're not listening to your music, that's another thing that's gone out of people's everyday life that they would normally. Well, it would take us out that aroused state, put us back into the relaxed state. Wow, blimey.
So much.
I find it very, very useful as well what you said at the end about being either a receiver or a giver, because something actually he has explained, it's something clicked when you said that. Because I definitely absorb the energies of the people around me.
Yeah.
And I get to the point sometimes when I'm already tired or full of my own stuff, where I can't take it. Especially if somebody's got negative energy, I need to get away.
Yeah.
Physically need to distance myself.
Yeah, it's so powerful, so powerful. And if you're a high sender, just try and work out the fact that you're sending positive energies. Because if you're a high sender and you're a negative sender, you're going to be negatively influencing people. I learned that many.
Return to sender.
I mean, I learned it many years ago, before I even really knew what it was all about. I would walk into an office, and if I was in a good mood, the office would lighten. And people told me this. If I was in a bad mood, the office went silent. I mean, I didn't know that until someone come and had a word with me one day. I thought, and I was in one of those bad moods. And when they told me, and then I did the research, and as I do, and I suddenly thought, God, they were brave. It's true. It's really true. And you will see the people that are putting out positive energies. You feel it, but you also feel the negative ones. And again, think for yourself, do you take on energies, or do you have the barrier up that just bounces them off? Because if you put the barrier up, you can bounce the negative ones off, and you can attract the positives, because you'll know how to work it. it's fascinating stuff, but it's so true. Really is so true.
Any more questions? More shares or no? Well, Julie, that was amazing. Wow, I have to say.
You're welcome.
So much stuff, isn't there? There's so much
Yeah.
stuff to digest as well, and you know,
Yeah.
I think we go on. You
No,
want to-
actually, sorry
No,
to
no, it's
interrupt
okay.
you. But one of the questions that sprang to mind is that, if you notice it in somebody else, what can you do? The one thing or the couple of things that you can do to actually help them without being overpowering.
What if you notice somebody whose mental health appears to be affected?
Yeah.
The first thing I would say was it depends how well you know them. And if you know them well, I would have a direct conversation with them, and in the positive format of giving them feedback, tell them what you've noticed is different.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens with any of this, whether it be mental health or stress, they're so intertwined. And I said it, I think it was on the first or second slide, it can be a really slow process, and people don't know they're going there. And because it can be a slow process, you might be a little bit confused in your head. I mean, I've been there, so I sort of know this stuff. You might be a little bit confused in your head, but because it's so slow, you don't recognise how poor you're becoming at decision making and communicating and planning and remembering things, because it's a slow process, and a little drip every now and then you don't notice until the bucket's overflowing type thing. So the sooner this can be caught, and the sooner, same with stress, the sooner it can be caught and the sooner that you can have the conversation with somebody, the better off they'll be. But they have to listen. That's the thing. They have to be willing to take the advice, and a lot of people aren't, because they know best about themselves. So I always go in with the approach of, depending on how well I know them, that you used to do this and now you're doing that. So like a comparison. And then I'd ask a really open question along the lines of, I don't know. And if you say, how are you? People are just going to say, oh, I'm all right. Or you'd get a diatribe of where they're not all right. But at least if you can get them speaking, you can then pick out, use really good coaching questions. You'll get to the answer. And this is the thing, you cannot make people share. If they don't want to share, you can't make them. It's just one of those things. And it depends how they see, going back to the stigma that's attached to mental health, it depends how they perceive mental health. Whether it's I personally see it as a strength to ask for help. I don't always do it, because that's a whole nother thing. But actually, to ask for help if you've got an issue is a real strength. But not everybody sees it like that. They see it as a weakness because of the stigma attached to it. It's really complex. If I had the answer to it, but it's really complex. You can try your hardest to help people, and they just don't take it. So you can't make people accept your help. So I focus my energies where people want the help. It's just one of those things. The amount of conversations I'm having with people, and some of them will have one conversation and disappear. That's fine. You can't help. This is this whole thing, and it comes out. You can't help everybody. You can't. What's the phrase? You can't help all of the people all of the time, or something. What's the phrase? I can't remember what the phrase is now. You're going to interact with some people more positively than others, for sure.
It's like you can't take the horse. You can take the horse to water, but you can't get the horse to drink it. Something like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unless you put salt in the oats is the marketing addition to that.
That's so funny.
I think when it comes to wanting to help people, it boils down to several things. I think one is awareness. So if somebody is not aware that they have an issue, then trying to assist them is actually quite difficult because they don't know that. Sometimes people don't even know that they're depressed. So if you tell them they're depressed, they'll be going, I'm not depressed. Because they don't have a sense of what the symptoms are. So then it's difficult to advise. And then if somebody is not, sometimes people are just not ready to be helped because they're not aware of it, and sometimes they're just not in the place where they feel they're ready to listen.
They're in
to
denial.
anything. Be denial. So they're not. You know, it's perception. They're not perceiving that there's a problem. So you can't advise and help people. They don't think they've got an issue that needs to be involved in. And as you say, this is complicated. Was that Peter?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I suppose if you charge people for it, then if they don't take your advice, at least you've got the money to go and buy a Nutella sandwich to cheer yourself up.
I wouldn't be buying a Nutella sandwich.
It's the recompense for having produced the bread. You know, I put the time in to make the bread, and then you can cut yourself a nice slice and put whatever you like on top.
Absolutely, yeah.
See, the other thing linked into all of this. I mean, I could talk about this sort of stuff for days, but you've got the change emotions. You know, so denial, anger, depression, acceptance, or acknowledgement, going on into the future. So all that's going on as well at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, you can see people in complete denial on both camps. You can see people that are angry. You can see people that are hitting the depression. You can see people that are going to skip across and not go to depression. So all that's happening at the same time because nothing sits in isolation. And of course, we're going through a change at the moment. Nobody knows where we're heading towards.
Yeah. So
we're going through a change process. But what's the future? We don't know what the future is. So the uncertainty of this, it's quite awe-inspiring when you think about what we are living through, all of us.
It's enormous, isn't it?
But stay in the present moment.
Just to say from someone, I just want to say, I mean, I grew up in a war. We had a war.
Wow.
We had to sit in a basement. We were grenaded. We were I'm not going to go into details, but you just kind of have to hope. You just, okay, this is going to end. And you just kind of take that kind of approach. What can I do in this time? And you do the best that you can.
Yeah.
Because when you can't see the end of something and you don't know what the result is, you just need to get to the stage where you can hope and you find what can you do with your time, and then you just focus on that and try to not be taken down with negative things, even though they will come and go, and somehow things change. Things cannot stay the same for a long time. They will change into different things, but that's the only thing, the best thing that I learned from all of that things do change, but you just have to lift yourself up thinking that there is something at the end of this, because otherwise you can lose yourself in what's happening, and it's really tricky. So
yeah, that's, do you know what you've just said there, Nevis? I think that's absolutely key with all of this. We can't lose ourselves in what's happening. We have to find ourselves to move forward. If you think about it, if we lose ourselves, who gets us back?
I was hoping you would, Julie.
I can do my best, Peter.
I better make sure it's not on your bad mood day, though.
Oh no, you don't want to see me on one of them. I do isolate when I'm having one of them.
Good for you.
I know when I'm in one of them moods, you don't want to be around me.
Not if you made a whole office go quiet, for sure.
They were brave telling me, but it taught me a big lesson.
Yeah.
That was over 30 years ago now. That happened.
That right?
Incredible.
Gosh.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
I'm glad they told me, because otherwise, how would I know?
Yeah. Good job you don't hold grudges for 30 years, isn't it?
Oh no, grudges. That's a waste of energy as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just joking.
It's brave of the person who did actually tell you, because people normally like to ignore it, and nobody wants to say anything to the person that's involved, do they? So it's very brave of the person that did.
Well, they did come up in a contingency of 3.
Oh wow! They obviously planned it.
Safety in numbers.
Yeah,
exactly. Nice person, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Any other comments or questions?
No.
Well, we want to say a massive, massive thank you to Julie. I think
you're welcome.
we just
Thank you.
that was amazing, absolutely amazing. It's sort of like the subject we could go on all night talking about this, can't we? Because as you said, it's very complex. We are complex human beings, so that's why this is a complex subject, because it affects us all differently in different ways.
Yeah,
it does. But yeah, no, that was amazing talk. So much.
Well, thank you for setting me off on the investigation.
That's a pleasure.
And we're going to put the video on straight away on the Facebook page. So if you could all please, like it and share it, because I think this should be spread as wide as possible.
Yeah,
I think it can help many people.
And there was one question. The book that you referred to, what was that, please?
This one.
Yes.
Stress the Reality.
Stress the Reality. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. I wrote it in the first lockdown. I got an opportunity, which I took. So it's on Amazon. It's on Kindle and it's in paperback as well.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right. You're welcome. And I'll say this: it's actually really good, even though I wrote it.
Really? Gosh, we'd have never guessed.
There's lots of there's questionnaires in there as well. There's self-awareness things. There's questionnaires linked to stress. There's a lot of research went into this, and the reason I wrote this is because the book that I learned about stress from probably 30 years ago, you can't buy it anymore. It's not published anymore, and it was so simple. It was such a simple, easy read. I thought I need to replicate it, and I haven't replicated it because clearly I can't do that. But there's a lot of
similarities.
I tried to make it really simple so people can understand it, because that's how I operate. It doesn't things don't need to be complicated. But there's lots of questionnaires. There's sort of quizzes in. I say quizzes, questionnaires and quizzes in there, but a lot of real information about how our body actually works with stress, because we can't control it.
No.
That, and that's the thing we have to remember. Our body does this to us regardless.
Right.
What we have to do is manage the consequences of whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
It's an easy read.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What we'll do is share your email, if you don't mind, with everybody, Julie. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Julie, then you can do that, and we'll put the book out of the book there too, so that if anybody wants to
thank you.
buy that, then they can. So yes, as we said, we're going to put the video on Facebook, as Luca said, and we just want to. We're close to time, isn't it? There were 2 people who joined us late, and that was Rune and Lisa. Now we did the introductions, and I hope you don't mind. We'd just like to invite you to introduce yourselves as well, so that we know all about you. We do know all about you, but want to hear it again anyway. So, Woon first.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I think most I've spoke to most people. So yeah, so I run a podcasting agency. So I help people set up and launch podcasts, and yeah, it's been going on. So I guess I'm still in business.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Woon. And Lisa.
Yes, hello. Actually known Katerina and Luca for a very, very long time. That's how I ended up here. I'm doing a couple of things. I'm in transition. Bad time to be in transition between jobs, but there you go. I've been a yoga teacher for the last 15 years and retrained as a garden designer 2 years ago. So I've kind of still got 2 feet in either camp, which is always a stretch, but everything's changed now, of course. So yeah, so I was really interested, Julie. Unfortunately, I missed your talk because I actually logged in last week waiting, and then I realized it was this week.
No.
It was a bit annoying because last week I actually had a week off from teaching, but tonight I had to teach, so I unfortunately missed your talk. But I'll catch up on it on the recording because I'm really interested because my mental health really deteriorated and suffered over the lockdown, and I didn't know initially it was my mental health until someone said to me, your mental health is being affected, and it was like a light bulb moment, and I had no idea. So that was, you know, really interesting that you can walk around with all these feelings and everything comes with it and you're clueless. And it's only when someone said that to me I started thinking, okay, yeah, I think you're right. And that's when I started then, you know, sort of investigating what can I do. So the 2 things that helped me was meditation and breath work, without a doubt. Yeah. So anyway, so that's why I was curious to see what you had to say, but I've missed it, so I'll catch up on it. Yeah.
Well, Lisa, if you've got any questions, you know, after you've listened to it, if you've got any questions, just email me. I'm very happy to, you know, answer them.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. And I'm really keen also to learn more, obviously my own journey, and I've learned a lot about myself and what worked for me, because I still teach yoga classes, but I'm passing this on to my students because they all need it. And I'm kind of in a really great position to pass on what I've learned and see if it might work for other people too. Yeah.
There we go. You're going to touch more people than you know, Julie. That's wonderful. Right. Okay. Our next meeting is, I think it's on the 2nd, is it 2nd of December, Wednesday the 2nd of December. So make a note of that, and we hope to see you then. We'll obviously post details nearer the time.
Buy a party hat.
Buy a party hat, yes, because it's Christmas, and get your crackers out so we can all do, yeah, maybe a glass of wine, whatever. We can have a little party. Yes, you can wear your best
sandwich.
Christmas hat. Sorry?
Nutella sandwich.
Nutella sandwich. It's not going to let you forget that, are you?
I'll have them ready. And I'll eat them all as well.
You just see a little nibble mark on the corner of one of them. That would be me, having taken that bit out. But otherwise, it'll be intact.
By the way, the next time I'll show you one of my sandwiches I make with my own bread. It's kind of like, I don't know if they fit onto the screen because they're about that size. Yeah, that's one of the joys. One of the joys of preparing your own.
I was going to be really rude there and say, no, I won't.
No, okay, no.
I'll get
go on. Please.
They're massive, these sandwiches. They're about this long and like that, aren't they? They've got this stuff in them, but anyway, he enjoys them. So anyway, we're digressing, sorry. Right, okay, thank you very much, Julie, and thank you everybody for coming. It's been lovely seeing you all again, and we look forward to seeing you in December when we can sing our Christmas carols. We might have some music in the background, and as I said, our party hats and crackers, and so we'll make it all fun. But okay, so have a lovely evening, and we'll see you all soon. And thanks again, Julie.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for hosting. Thank you for hosting, Katerina and Luca.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.